Welcome to your doom.
Doom. One of the great giants of the gaming industry, a franchise practically anyone who's ever touched a gamepad, a joystick, or a gaming PC knows well. Doom thrusted the first-person shooter from a mere concept to the most popular video game genre for years to come. From the original, to its sequel, to the innumerable map packs, mods, spin-offs, rebrands, and programming guides? Yes, Doom captured the imagination of gamers to point, shoot, and repeat for a decade. All the modern behemoths like Overwatch, Call of Duty, Destiny, Battlefield, you name it, owe something to the ground that Doom franchise broke back in the early 90s. There was that game somewhere before that, which had something to do with wolves or Nazis or Nazi robots or something, but no matter. Where there was Buck Rogers in the 30s, it was Star Trek that inspired a generation of sci-fi fans to want to adventure beyond the stars. Doom was in many ways the Star Trek of the first-person shooter genre. You may or may not remember this, but there were several long years when every new shooter was called a Doom clone. Doom was the cattle brand that all shooters were marked with. Yeah, that was the staying power this series had in the minds of gamers. This trend had lasted until the late 90s and early 2000s, when it slowly shifted and was eventually replaced with the generic term we now know as the first-person shooter. So what happened then? Why do we have more Battlefields than we have numbers for, and a new Call of Duty being announced every few months it seems? Where was the love for the self-appointed granddaddy of shooting? To fully understand the evolution of Doom, let's go back to the early 1990s when a couple of dudes named John started a company called id Software. After making a few popular games like Commander Keen, id released Wolfenstein 3D, which was a popular, albeit now primitive-looking 2D shooter presented in the first-person perspective. They later went on to make Doom, which graphically blew away the competition in its smooth, tactile controls, great aesthetic presentation, and addictive, demon-killing gameplay. Doom's core gameplay worked so well, several games reused the engine for other great games like Heretic, Hexen, and Strife. Some of those launched their own successful series, but funnily enough, Doom's engine wasn't technically a 3D game engine. It was actually a 2D shooter that presented the gameplay through a first-person perspective. It's kind of hard to imagine now, but in Doom there were no stacked rooms or bridges or any level geometry other than walls, floor, and ceiling. Just a little interesting tidbit that many people don't know. Doom was a big hit in 1993, so much in fact that id Software churned out a mostly unrevolutionized, but still very well received sequel called, you guessed it, Doom 2. Admittedly, Doom 2 was the first of the series I ever played, and boy was it glorious. It was fast, gory, and a testament to action gaming. Within seconds of a brief block of story text, you were in the game dismembering demons like there's no tomorrow. Possessed soldiers, imps, cacodemons, cyberdemons, and more. A few years after Doom 2, id's next game, Quake, was released. Quake introduced fully polygonal levels and models. This meant fully 3D enemies, guns, and vertical level design. You could jump, climb, and fall through a true 3D space now, all while killing monstrous enemies and grooving to a legit Trent Reznor soundtrack. And oh boy, what glorious polygons those were. I count 3, I think, 2.5. Anyway, Quake was very impressive for its time. It has definitely aged badly, but nobody can shake our belief that the 3D gun-toting, rocket-launching speedfest that was Quake was widely successful. Spawned various sequels, spin-offs, and treatments, it became one of the greatest arena shooters of all time. But after several Heretic, Hexen, and Quake sequels, as well as other successful games like Duke Nukem 3D, Unreal, Unreal Tournament, Half-Life, and even Call of Duty, we still had seen no trace of our beloved demon-bashing Doom sequel, which would bring the game to a new decade and a new dimension. After 11 long years and no doubt buckets of crumpled sketches and scrap designs, Doom 3 was finally released, and it was good. Most people really liked it. It had great graphics, and it was very impressive for the era. It was much more console-friendly this time around, since the game controllers were much more apt to shooters and first-person games this time around. But in my opinion, something had changed deep in the game. No longer were you just a simple Marine, or Doom Guy, as the protagonist has been lovingly referred to over the years. But now, you are part of a larger story. There were characters that talked to you, there was a plot of some sort, and overall, the feeling I got from Doom 3 was more of a Half-Life or pseudo-survival horror game than one of id Software's previous entries. It takes about a half hour of moping around, talking, and go here questing to actually get into the meat of the game. And often, in the beginning, you're running around with a flashlight or a weak pistol. The game was significantly toned down to a more realistic look, and the setting was made into something darker, literally. And I know it's a pet peeve of mine, but in an arena/id Software shooter, does it kill you to properly light the place? I know Doom 3 is well known for its spooky atmosphere as compared to other games in the series, as well as the jump scares, but the last thing I want to have to worry about when I'm planning on chainsawing a demon in half is what lighting I would like to have while bathing in imp gore. So Doom 3 was a departure from the series, but it had been so long coming most people enjoyed the game, as it was clearly inspired by other popular shooters since Doom. And it's mostly praised to this day. Then nothing. id Software had made some other minor updates and re-releases in the interim, but the other franchises they created like Wolfenstein and Quake were taken over by other studios. id Software had really just evaporated into nothingness for several years until re-releasing the slightly underachieving Rage in 2011. John Carmack, one of ID's founding fathers and one of the key directors and programmers, talked about a new Doom game in the works, but as delays and problems seemed to mount up, Doom seemed less and less likely to release soon, or worse, be any good. There was even a trailer, scrapped artwork and prototype gameplay and levels made for an early version of Doom 4 that was cancelled and rebooted. It had more of an earthy and even Mad Max-like look, with a lot of the NPCs looking like something out of a Call of Duty or Gears of War game. The gameplay was allegedly slow, incentivized cover mechanics, and was overall very un-Doom-like. To this day, Doom holds a special place in my heart. In fact, my gamertag of many years is Indigo, which was inspired by one of the unusual colors of Doom Guy you could choose from in Doom 2. My channel icon was even inspired by an older Doom Guy helmet design. So that's why, when a new trailer for Doom 4 was shown off in 2015, people's interest spiked again. I regained some optimism that we'd finally see a true successor to the Dooms of old. When Doom came out in May of 2016, to many surprise, it had a fantastic single-player component that expertly captured the core gameplay of demon destroying from the originals, but with vastly improved movement, verticality, and audio visuals. I jumped the gun and played it. I had a blast. Within about 5 seconds of starting the game's campaign, I was given a gun and demons to shoot at. It was glorious. With a creative reinterpretation of melee combat and finisher moves, Doom makes close combat never obsolete. Fast, visceral gunplay with a return of most all the classic weaponry. Combat felt responsive, weighty, and brutal. Excellent pacing and regular action or interaction with little to no interruptions for story bits or cinematic events. Large, labyrinthine maps with lots of secrets, supplies, and tricky areas to get to or discover. Blistering frame rate and resolution capabilities to squeeze every iota of graphics power out of your system. Doom 4 is fantastic. There have been few traditional shooters that capture the simple magic of the old school FPS, with only Wolfenstein: The New Order and maybe Bulletstorm really coming close. I could do a whole video on Doom, which I no doubt will do in the future, but after finishing the campaign, I have to say I'm satisfied with what id Software was able to put together after the long, delayed, and rocky production cycle that led up to its release. I look forward to what they may bring in the future. Well, hopefully this video is entertaining, informational, or at least a little bit nostalgic. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some demon heads to crush.